Welcome, everybody. I am Leah Remillet with leahremillet.com, and I am very, very excited because I have one of my absolute favorite authors and speakers, Merrilee Browne Boyack, with me today. She wrote this book that's called The Parenting Breakthrough. It's awesome. This has truly changed my life as a parent, and I know there are so many of you who have read it and agree. So she's with me today, and we are going to talk about what the goal is as a parent, what we can do to actually reach the goal, and if we have time, we may even touch on balancing being that awesome parent that you dream of and know you need to be, but also balancing your other passions and ambitions as well. So, welcome, Merrilee. Okay, so will you tell us first off, what is the goal? What are we trying to accomplish with these little people we have been entrusted with?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know about you, but they just kind of handed me my kids and they had no owner's manual. And I was a little freaked out about that. I thought, what am I supposed to do? I've just been a babysitter, but I haven't been a mother. I have no clue. And we searched high and low for books and resources to help us figure out what we were doing because we didn't really know what we were doing. We searched high and low, couldn't find it, put together our own plan. The number one goal, actually number two for us, our number one goal as parents, of course, is to keep our kids alive. That's kind of our job. And with 4 boys, that was a little challenging, I got to admit. And, secondly, to train them to be independent adults. A big part of that is transferring our value system on hard work, honesty, perseverance, all these kinds of things that we want to teach them. But then there's this very practical aspect. We see it in the animal kingdom. We see the mama bears teaching the baby bears, here's how you survive, here's how you eat. And I don't know about you, but I saw a lot of families that were not doing that terribly well. And we really wanted to do that well and have our kids be super ready, trained, do our job as parents so that by the time, they were reaching adulthood, they were ready to take care of themselves. And they weren't sitting there, wondering, how do you do a checking account and how do you work? And we didn't want any of that going on.
And you suggested, think about when you first went on your own, what were the things you didn't know how to do? And so all these things, they really hit me. And I was like, oh, wow, yeah, there are so many things you want your kids to learn. And I love that I just love the way your mind works, that you were like, okay, we're making a plan. So in her book, there's this whole plan layout of every year. So explain kind of that idea, like breaking it down into these manageable chunks.
Right. And so you got this kid and we were putting together a plan and we were like, okay, we started by writing down everything we could think of that you needed to know as an adult. And, a lot of that was filling in holes of, whoops, I didn't even know how to write a check. And so we developed this giant honking list. We looked at that and, kind of freaked. I mean, it was like, whoa, how are we going to get all this done? And so we began to kind of categorize and put those down into, okay, what year is the best year to learn how to pump gas? What's a good year, age-wise for them to learn about doing a budget? When can they learn how to use the weed whacker? Everything, very practical. And we kind of put that into the age groups. Then we began to raise our children. Nothing like having the lab, my poor children, the guinea pigs, And, over years we would adjust things kind of up and down. And you got to adapt to your children. Some of my children, I have one child that loves to cook. And so he was on the fast track, which I promoted because I hate cooking. And, I had another child that was very mechanical. And so he fast tracked that way. Other kids were like, oh, no, I don't like this. And so there is a bit of a flow in the training of the children. But at the end of the day, man, they kind of know how to get dressed on their own, and they got to know how to get their own haircut. And they got to know all things, how to cook and how to feed themselves and how to fix things around the house. And, so at the end of the day, we had this list and then just plowed through it. And it worked. Yeah.
It's awesome. So I remember, I'm looking to see, let's see, is it 4 years old? Yeah, 4 years old. So when I first got this book, I remember reading through what you had and I'm like, oh, my youngest son should be able to make a sandwich. Okay, because you had 4 years old can make a sandwich. So I was like, that day I'm like, called him in the kitchen. We're learning to make sandwiches today. And it was just, it really opened my mind to realize also how capable our kids are, younger than sometimes we give them credit. We so often, think, oh, they're not quite old enough for that. And now thank you, because I have these kids my kids are 10, 8, and 6. They vacuum stairs, they clean bathrooms, they make dinner and lunches and breakfast. It's awesome. And they feel more independent and proud, and I'm like, this is amazing.
Well, and that's one of the offshoots that I didn't really anticipate was the confidence level. I include some stories in the book of my kids saying, oh, poor Nicole down the street, her parents won't let her do her own wash. And I'm like, oh, that's so sad, how tragic. And I'm just going, yes, and on the kids were just so capable. One story I tell about little Tanner, who was probably 5 or 6, and I'm taking him into the barber, and the barber looks at me and says, yes, Mom. And I'm like, ask him. It's his head, And, he says, I'll have a number 1 blocked in the back, no sideburns. I mean, he orders it, and he's like this child. And this 65-year-old man next to him looks at him and goes, I don't even know how to order my haircut, And this great, enormous confidence comes as they do skill after skill after skill. Because these are important things. They know these are grown-up things. They know grown-ups, make their own dentist appointments. They know grown-ups handle their own money, and they love it. They're like, this is wonderful stuff. This is grown up things. And so, they end up way confident and willing to tackle new stuff because look at all this other stuff I can do. Piece of cake, right. I can try this. And that's really a nice part of it.
Oh, my oldest was beaming for days this last summer when she ordered the pizza all by herself. And then we drove up and she went and paid for it and brought it out. And I mean, she was beaming. She could not believe how grown up she was. Okay, so another thing I want to touch on that was huge for me, that like you gave me permission to let other people help me because I don't know how to do everything. And that was huge. So in this huge plan that we can each build, and they can buy the book and see your plan. But in this huge plan, there may be things that you don't know how to do. And so share, just touch on what we can do in that instance.
Well, you've got 2 elements. You've got one, there are things you don't know or don't do well. For me, that's cooking. Like, I'm terrible. And I don't like it. So, the thought of training just sounded agonizing. So there's things you don't know how to do or don't like to do. And then the other element is, as your children get older, they don't want to listen to Mom all the time. And Mom's tired. I don't want to have to do all this work. And so we began to bring in trainers. I would have them go to other people to learn how to cook, and they would come home, she says to do this and do that. I'm like, great, man, party on. I had, we had grandparents in teaching and training. We had scout leaders were huge. So I think it's really helpful to bring in other people. I think it's important to cross-train. Dad did cooking stuff.
I'm so glad you're talking about that. Yes.
Hello, and I tell you, if any of my boys said this is women's work, they were missing body parts. That did not occur in our home. And so a lot of cross-training so that they don't get the perception of only men do this, or only women did this, or only mothers do this. So we tried to mix up that training. Take them to the bank. Have the banker teach them how a bank account works. Have them sit down and meet with the financial planner and learn about investments. It was really a wonderful learning thing. And like I say, by the time they were 14, I did no more training, very little. And we kind of turned them over to all these other people, and we would say, they need to learn this, they need to learn that. And that taught them adult interactions. That taught them networking. Oh my gosh, my kids are crazy networkers now because they see the power of it. That was a lifesaver. Absolutely.
Well, and also I love, so, you start with the plan in the first section of the book, and it's all about, okay, what all do you want your kids to know by the time they hit 18? And then you move into learning that work ethic, and then learning the finances and all that kind of stuff, which you help explain that in the book for the parents who are like, how do I teach finances when I'm not confident about finances myself? And I thought that was so important. Okay, thank you for sharing all those insights. Let's just take a couple more minutes, and I would love to hear your thoughts on balancing our work career ambitions. You are a lawyer. You've written several books. You are a speaker that goes all over the country. You do so much, and you have also raised 4 amazing sons who have been able to go off into the world knowing how to bake pies and do laundry. So how do we do both?
I think the most critical thing is get your head straight on your priorities. And that was hard because I am so driven. My priority was my children and my family, and I let that drive my decision making. And so often, in fact, I was just counseling my son on this just the other day. Pick your priorities, pick your goals, and don't let number 4 drive number 1. If number 1 is home and family, let that drive your decision making. I think the second thing is to remember there's a time and a season. And I had such a hard time with that. I wanted to be running full tilt in my career, but I realized that there was a time for me to, more importantly, and spend more time being a mother. And it was hard because I really wanted to be out there rocking and rolling. And now, I just turned the glorious age of 57. I look back and I think, oh, there's plenty of time. There's plenty of time for me to rock and roll, full tilt in the career. There was plenty of time then and to keep that perception. The third is to be creative. I decided I did not want to work full time when I had my children. That was my decision. Not every woman makes that decision. I'm cool with that. You got to work that out with you, your family, and God. That was my decision. And as a result, I needed to be creative. I was an attorney practicing estate planning, and I thought, okay, I'm going to work at home. I knew of no attorney ever on the planet who had ever worked at home, ever. And I thought, no, I'm going to just try this and see how it works. And I worked out an arrangement where I worked part-time at home. I would work while the kids were in school and in the evenings, and it worked great. My clients were happy. They weren't paying for the overhead of the fish tank and the marble floors. They were comfortable sitting on my couch with my children throwing paper airplanes at them. I mean, it just worked out so beautifully, And when I started writing books, some people are writers and they write every day. Not me. I block out 2 weeks and blast, I started speaking and traveling, and I needed to work that around my family and my other commitments. I went into politics. I've been in politics for 20 years. On and on. Be creative. Don't be afraid to do it your way and say, I don't know anybody that's ever done this. I didn't know anybody that had ever written books. I just hauled off and started doing it. I didn't know anybody that was a speaker. I knew nothing. And I thought, I'm just going to give this stuff a try. And bit by bit have just fit it into my life in my own way, being creative and not hitting those roadblocks of, lawyers don't do this, and speakers don't do that, and writers don't baloney. Do it your own way. And then finally, I would say be fearless. When I started writing, I cold called the publisher and said, you're going to want me. After 3 phone calls and me threatening, saying, you have 24 hours because you're really going to want me, they called and said, who are you? And away we went. My 10th, 11th books are coming out. Be fearless. Worst thing I can say is, no, you haven't lost anything. So be fearless. But I think the most critical thing is always keeping those priorities. Just keep on that number 1 goal of what you want your life to look like. And don't, money is just so secondary. The praise of people that you don't know, so secondary. Stay true to what's really important in your life, and everything else will work its way around it quite nicely.
Merrilee, it is such an honor to have you on this episode with me. And we will have links so that you guys can find her book and her website and more information in the blog post. Thank you again, and we will see you guys soon.